You got to help me out here, because Stephen K. and I are getting along these days, Mr. Bannon. And we love the War Room, and we had a nice summit in CPAC Dallas, and you were there. And I don't want him to be mad at me, because he might turn it on Rav and say, you're stealing my guest, because you've become a sensation. And also, Dave Walsh Energy, I think, on
That's
Getter.
where I saw him.
At Dave Walsh Energy.
But I just want Stephen K. to know, and you can back me up. You and I have been friends for a few years.
Long time.
And you reached out to me some months ago and said, I've got something to say about energy. I'd love to get on War Room. And so I helped you get on there, small thing, and you've just run with it. So Stephen K., we're not stealing your guy. He was my guy, and we're sharing him with you, and he's great. And you'll back me up on it.
Absolutely. All true and correct.
So what do you make of this? Because you go on the War Room, he's got such a great following, and you talk about these big energy issues in Europe and around the world and how it's impacting America. And I see the live chat and everything else on Getter light up, because people are eating up what you're saying, because you're giving them facts. And this Rav family, which when I first joined it, you said, hey, you and your wife Terry watch it all the time. You love it. It's a great community. What are your thoughts about this community?
Well, I had a serious career in that space. I ran the international service subsidiaries for Westinghouse, their China joint ventures in power, their power generation service business. Then I founded Mitsubishi, same business over here in the Western Hemisphere for basic power generating equipment. I became president of it. We just have a significant lack of folks with that kind of experience, especially still in key roles in industry, in the generation industry, in utilities, and the OEMs, be it GE, Siemens, etc., being willing to speak out about these things. Because this myth of renewables saving us in the next 20, 30 years, it is a myth. Mathematically, it doesn't work. It can't work. We're talking about energy sources that today are a grand total of 4% of the U.S. total energy supply all in.
Wait, you mean to tell me that Jennifer Granholm doesn't know a lot about energy? I'm joking.
She doesn't seem to. She doesn't seem to.
Supposed to be our energy secretary for Joe Biden. Every time she speaks, we put her foot in her mouth. 30% off the solar panels. That's great for the poor and middle class who have apartments, don't own homes for solar panels, and don't have the money for them.
No, less than half of the people in the country are homeowners. Around this part of the country, maybe 40% of people are homeowners. What solar panels on a rooftop consist of is taking, if I have panels, taking my electric bill and passing it to my neighbor who can least afford it in an apartment, in an old age home, in a dorm, in a place without a roof that they can't afford panels, because the fixed cost of electricity is about 72% of the bill. The substations, the wires, the transmission system, the power plants. So that bill that you get is 72, 74% that. When it's free, that's fixed cost is being passed to my neighbor who doesn't have solar panels. So, I can afford them. I don't have them. But that's not a fair public policy position. Actually, the governor vetoed, the legislature here stood up and voted to eliminate net metering. The governor unfortunately vetoed it on the basis that the cost of those with panels would go up a little bit. Well, the fact is that the cost allocation would be much more fair without this net metering concept, allowing fixed costs to be passed to your neighbor.
So I want to go back to the 4% for a second, because that's a shocking number, 4%. And I also want to mention, Donald Trump, when he gives his speeches, he's still talking about the windmills and how the windmills kill birds. So it just seems like they come out with all these.
They laughed
at him, but he was right. They come up with all these really ineffective strategies and put the focus on that. But 4%. That's shocking.
All in total energy, when you take into account transportation, home heating and cooling, which in the U.S. is half gas and oil, half electricity, and then all the electric generation, all in energy, 4% of it is wind and solar. And then if you look back at the new definition of renewables includes hydroelectric, which we've always had, the Hoover Dam, the Niagara Falls, etc., dam-based power. It's always been there. It's called a renewable because it doesn't have emissions associated with it. We've always had that. So if you go back to 1975, from 75 to now, the total amount of real renewables elevation has also been about 5% from 75 to now. When you account for the fact, with hydro, as a nation, we were 12% renewable in 1975. Now we're about 19%. Yeah. So that's moved by about 4% since then.
That's incredible.
This is a huge thing to change over a very long period of time.
What about nuclear energy?
Nuclear power is still 20% of the U.S. electricity supply. It's fundamentally important, even though the number of plants have reduced.
Why aren't they talking about that, though? Why is that not
Well,
in the narrative?
it's been regulated into oblivion. The Green Movement was all about, and their first big success was killing nuclear back in the 70s and 80s, frightening people that this is somehow equivalent to a nuclear weapon, that it might blow up, B, the storage of the fuel, the spent fuel, if it fell off a train car, going to Yucca Mountain could kill people, which is a completely benign substance.
Wait, the left used scare tactics?
Big time.
Can you believe it? No, I'm being sorry.
The trouble became the regulatory cost of building nuclear in this country elevated and elevated and elevated to where it became completely non-cost effective. So we've got the only plant being built today is Plant Vogtle in Georgia. Original budget for that was $12 billion. Billion. It's hitting the finish line at $32 billion.
$32 billion.
The regulatory cost has most to do with that. The rest of the world is building 54 nuclear power plants. 2 in the U.S., 3 in Western Europe, 5 in the West, 49 in the rest of the world. The rest of the world gets it. They understand nuclear.
Yeah.
China's moving ahead. They've got 19 being erected.
I got about 30 seconds. Europe right now, I mean, you've been talking about it on War Room. I don't want to steal it, but just give us a quick. I mean, they may have an awful winter. Russia's got them by the you-know-whats because Donald Trump warned Europe, and they laughed at him. And now here we are, and Russia's squeezing them.
Europe did 3 things that were a complete disaster in long-term energy management. One was consciously shut down baseload, continuous duty, heavy-duty power plants. In England, all the coal plants are basically not operational at this point. It used to be 33% of their power. Homegrown, home-mined coal from the UK. Energy security. Yep. Germany, the same. Reduced by about 2/3, and plan to reduce all of their nuclear, which was 25% of Germany's power. Displaced most of that, not with wind and solar, but in reality with gas.
And now they're rationing, and they're saying you can't go to the office with as many lights. Right. And the Finland, they love the saunas. You got to have less sauna. I mean, could be coming to America with this crazy socialism.
For example, in Germany and England, home heating is 95% oil and gas based. It's a huge issue. It's a huge
follow him, Dave Walsh Energy. See him on the War Room.
They love
my
him
friend,
in the
our
chat,
friend.
and they're
love
saying
him?
that Cowpuck says Walsh is amazing. Trump's Secretary of Energy 2024.
Let's make it happen. 2025. This man will be the Energy Secretary, Secretary Walsh, and you'll see him first on War Room and second on American Sunrise.